Lesson 102, growth and decay, and then an appendix lesson, substitution. First off, as a review with growth and decay, we're working with the concept similar to geometric sequences. With geometric sequences, you have a constant ratio, which means you are multiplying the same number each time, or you're dividing by a certain number each time. With growth and decay, growth is just an increase in value or size. Decay is just a decrease in value and size. So a growth, an example would be an effect compound interest has on the value of a bank account. So that would be an example of a growth. That would be an exponential growth. We got decay example, the effect of inflation on the value of the dollar in the world market. So the more money we put into the world, the less the value of that dollar is. So growth means it gets bigger. Decay is where it gets smaller or it decreases. So let's look at an example here. The population of a county has grown 2% per year for the last 5 years. If the county's population is now 1,200,000, what will the population be in 3 years at the current rate growth? Round to the nearest 1,000. So to do this one, we need, for a 2% increase, that means it's going to be 1.02 to find that out. Otherwise, you could take 2% of 1,200,000 and then add that to it. But a 2% increase means you get your 1,200,000 plus 2% on top of that. So we would do 1,200,000 times 1.02, and that would give us an answer of 1,224,000. So that's after 1 year. After 2 years, we take what we have after 1 year, so 1,224,000. Multiply that by 1.02 because it increased 2%. And that would give us an answer of 1,248,480. And then for the third year, start with 1,248,480. Multiply that by 1.02, because another 2% increase. And that would give us an answer of 1,273,449.6. Now it says here to round to the nearest 1,000. The nearest 1,000, so I need to round this 3 off. So this 4 tells us to keep it down at 1,273,000 people. The second part of the question says using the rule of 72. The rule of 72 says right here to divide the growth percent by 72 to find the prediction. So we're trying to find the doubling. So about how many years will it take for the county population to double at this rate? So we take our 72 and we divide it by the percent growth, which is 2%. So we're going to divide that by 2, and that will give us 36. So it would take about 36 years for it to double in population. Next, the schools in an older community experienced a decline in the student population of 3% per year. If the decline continues at the same rate, and there are 5,000 students in the community this year, about how many students will be in the community in 3 years? Round to the nearest 100. Since this one's a decline, we start off with 5,000 people, or 5,000 students. Since it's a 3% decrease, that means it's always 97% of what it was the previous year. So 97% of 5,000, multiply that by 0.97, that will give us an answer of 4,850, so that's after 1 year. And then 4,850 times 0.97, so another 3% decrease would give us 4,704.5. And then the third year, we have 44,704.5 times 0.97. So another 3% increase, or just 97% of the previous year, which will give us 4,563.365. We need to round to the nearest hundred. The 5 is in the hundreds place. That means we have to look at the 6. The 6 tells you to round this 5 up to 6. So we would say about 4,600 students will be in the community at that time. Next problem, carbon-14 is a radioactive isotope occurring in nature. It is used to date materials containing carbon, such as once living plants and animals. Carbon-14 has a half-life of about 5,730 years. If a bone is found containing about 1/4 the amount of carbon-14 as modern-day bones, how old is the bone? So we'll set it up this way. Half-life of carbon-14 would give us 5,730 years. If I do another half-life, that will still give me another 5,730 years. If I were to add these together, 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1/4. So there's your about 1/4 amount of carbon-14. Add these up, you would get 11,460. So about how many years would it be? How old would the bone be? The closest one would be A, 11,000 years. Next, the number of bacteria in a culture increased from about 2,000 to about 4,000 in 1 hour. Assuming the bacterial population grows exponentially, how much longer will it take the number to increase to 16,000? So to go from 2,000 to 4,000, so if we were just to create a sequence here, here I had to multiply this by 2 to get to 4,000. So for this one would be a geometric sequence, so I have to multiply 4,000 times 2 again, so this would give me 8,000. I multiply that by 2 again, that would give me an answer of 16,000. So in 1 hour, this is 1 hour, increase from 2,000 to 4,000. From 4,000 to 8,000, that's another hour. And from 8,000 to 16,000 is another hour. So after the initial, how many more hours would it take to go from 4,000 to 16,000? 1 plus 1 hour would give us 2 hours, or 2 more hours. Next part, find this next term in this growth sequence. What is the constant ratio? So we need to figure out how do you go from 16 to 24 to 36 to 54. To find the constant ratio, you take the second term, so 24 divided by the first term, 16. 24 divided by 16 would give us 1.5. I can check to see if that's the same if I take the next two, so 36 divided by 24. That would also give me 1.5. So the constant ratio is 1.5. So 54 times 1.5 gives us 81. Next one, find the next term in this decay sequence. What is the constant ratio? So decay, remember, it's going smaller. If I take 192 divided by 256, I get 0.75. So 192 divided by 256 gives us 0.75. If I took a 144 divided by 192, I also get 0.75. So 108 divided by 0.75, or 108 times 0.75 gives us 81. So it's really 75% of the previous number. So 108 times 0.75 gives you your 81. And our last concept for today, substitution. Substitution just means you are substituting one part of your equation into another, the same part in the other equation. So for here, we have a system of equations. We've done this by graphing before. Here with substitution, I need to solve for one of the variables. So in the second equation here, I'm going to get x by itself. So I would have 3y, add 3y to both sides. So x would equal -8 plus 3y. Since this is what x equals, I can substitute that in for this x right here because I wanted to see where those two lines cross. So now if I write this, substituting in for x, I have -8 plus 3y plus 8y has to equal 12. So I distribute the 2, so I have a -16 plus 6y plus 8y equals 12. Combine like terms, I have -16 plus 14y equals 12. To get 14y by itself, I subtract 16 on both sides. I get 14y equals a -4. To get y by itself, I'm going to divide by 14. Y would equal a negative, and here I can divide this by 2/2, a -2/7. So that would be what my y equals. Now I need to find out what x equals by substituting my y into one of these two equations. And I'm going to substitute it in this one because I'm solving for x. I just need to plug in -2/7 in for y. So x would equal a -8 plus 3 times a -2/7. So now I have x equaling a -8 minus 6/7. I take a -8. To add common fractions, I wouldn't have, this would actually be a -8 6/7 as my answer, or if you put it as an improper fraction, 8 times 7, 56, plus 6 gives us 62, so a -62/7. This would be our solution. Next one, solve for one of the variables. Here I'm going to solve for y in the second one. So I'm going to add x to both sides. And I have y equaling 2 plus x. And this is what y equals. So I'm going to substitute that in for y in the other one. So I have a -x plus 2 times 2 plus x equals a -1. I can distribute the 2. So a -x plus 4 plus 2x equals a -1. I'm going to combine like terms. -1x plus 2x is x plus 4 equals -1. Subtract 4 on both sides. X would equal a -5. If x equals -5, I can use this equation to find my y. So y equals 2 plus a -5, which would give us an answer of y equals a -3. These would be our answers. So that is our lesson today on growth and decay and substitution. Going back to the previous problem here, one on the left-hand side here, I just noticed that I made a mistake here. This should be a plus 16, not a minus 16. So I had to do the opposites. So that's going to change our answer here. So this will give us 28. Divide that by 14. That will give us an answer of 2. That means our x would equal negative 8 plus 3 times 2. So negative 8 plus 6, x would equal a negative 2. So x is negative 2, y is 2. So that would be our answer for our final question. So that is our lesson for today.